turn things over to Elica, and as we're going through her presentation, please feel free to send comments and questions into the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that, and I'll be helping moderate that for you. So if you have any burning questions or any feedback for Elica as we go along, feel free to send those into the chat. We'll make this a really engaging session. All right, so Elica, please go ahead and start sharing your screen.
Hi, Danica. I'm very, very privileged to be here today, and thanks you very much for the invitation to Women in Quantum. I follow you guys, and you're doing a great job, and I'm very much looking forward to the Women in Quantum Summit later this month. And I want to give my 5 cents on having a career in quantum computing. How does it look like? How did it used to look like? Because now it's very much different compared to when I personally started. And also how easy it is to make the transition to industry. Again, I'm not at all a career coach. I'm a quantum computing scientist. So I just really want to give my experience. And if you have questions, everyone that has dialed in, I would really love to have this as an interactive session. And if you have questions about your career or about your experiences, please definitely raise your hand or write a comment or something like that. And I would love to be here as a mentor and actually to help. And this is my goal for tonight. So let's move on. The title of my presentation is Building a Successful Career in Quantum Computing and Transitioning to Industry. Basically, these are the organizations that I have worked since completing my PhD. And I'm originally from Bulgaria, and I finished my PhD in the biggest university in Bulgaria, Sofia University. And after that, I moved to the Center for Quantum Technologies in Singapore, where I held a postdoc position. In fact, this was about 10 years ago. So I have been after post-PhD for 10 years now. And I had a postdoc position at the Center for Quantum Technologies in Singapore. After that, after about 2 years there, I moved to Singapore University of Technology and Design, which is an engineering university in Singapore that was established in collaboration with MIT. And after that, I went to MIT for a year, where I was involved in research and in teaching as well. So this was very, very nice. After that, I went back to SUTD and I also got involved with the UN Women Singapore Committee, which is a non-profit organization that was really targeting girls, high school girls, and trying to attract them to follow careers in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. So this was about 5-6 years ago. And since then, I'm really active, and I try to really give back to the younger generation. Usually the community that I help are girls, because we are very much underrepresented in the tech fields. And also I see this in my job every day. But of course, I'm very happy to see guys on the call. So none of these things are actually exclusive. So after several years in Singapore, I indeed moved to Tel Aviv University. And this happened 4 years ago. So I'm currently still in Israel. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone. And when I was there, I in fact also established Girls in Tech Tel Aviv. So this is another NGO that is working to promote careers in tech for girls. And after a while, this was really when I started to consider. You can see my whole path until then was academia, except for the volunteering positions, which were volunteering, but I was a pure academician, I guess you would say. And after that, I kind of started considering joining industry. And ultimately what happened was that I joined a venture capital fund that was interested to invest in quantum computing startups. And this is TPY Capital. It's an Israeli venture capital fund. And I guess this is where more or less my link to academia kind of diminished. And after several months, less than a year with TPY Capital, I was helping them with their investments in startups. So this really kind of opened a whole new perspective on quantum computing for me, where I could really see the investors' perspective, what they were looking for in the quantum computing startups, and so on. And after several months there, I finally joined, officially industry, and I joined Boehringer Ingelheim, which is a big pharmaceutical company from Germany. And it's one of the first ones to set up a quantum computing lab of quantum computing scientists that are looking at drug discovery.
Oh, Elica, that's fantastic. And real quick, we have a question for you in the chat. Devika would like to know what kind of research you did at Tel Aviv University.
So all of the time, all my research was more or less in quantum control. And my specialty has always been, I'm a theorist, so I was doing theoretical work, but I was solving problems that were close to the hardware. So really quantum control, quantum error mitigation, and quantum optics. So this was really this is really my background. And now I'm working on algorithms for drug discovery. So this is actually a very precise question, and it really shows that a point that I'm planning to make later on. But you can make transitions within the quantum computing stack, I think. But it's very important to have a really deep understanding and knowledge and expertise in one part of the quantum computing stack. And why I wanted to show you all these jumps and hoops in my career, I could have run probably a traveling salesman algorithm on that to bring me from Sofia University to Boehringer Ingelheim. And you can see it's not even really clear to me when exactly did I move to industry. But now I'm definitely not anymore involved in academia. So let's continue. I would like to know more, so I'll make a very quick poll to the participants, and you just give me a second. So these are the questions that I would like. Oh, okay. So Danica, can you help me with the poll? Because it says that I cannot make it while I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, so what we can do for now is if people could send their answers into the chat, we can do that. And Elica, I haven't worked with the poll before, but I'll try and get it up and running. So I'll do that as we go. And in the meantime, please send your answers into the chat. I love your idea, Elica, of getting to know our audience better. And I would love to know what your backgrounds are like too. So please send that into the chat and I will try and get the poll up and running.
Yeah, so for me it was very interesting to find out about our audience, where in the quantum computing journey they find themselves. So I imagine that it's enthusiasts, students, professionals working in academia, and very unlikely, I thought maybe also professionals working in industry, but maybe there are people like that as well.
Yeah, so Elica, we're getting some great responses. We have professionals who are working in the industry. We have enthusiasts who are looking to transition. Oh, it's really lighting up now. This is good. So a lot of professionals, enthusiasts, PhD students working their way through. We've got a postdoc at Weizmann, theoretical stuff. Joshua, who knows nothing about it, but sounds like an interesting talk. Joshua, we've all been there. Thank you so much for joining us. Another enthusiast and postdoc. Yeah, so a lot of people who are enthusiastic, and it looks like either people who are professionals who are students. We did just get another question. Maybe you could address this now or later in your talk, whichever you're comfortable with, but Vednash has asked what a third-year undergraduate in physics can do.
I think in terms of, so third year undergraduate is a good time, I think, to have an internship. So you can really focus on getting an internship. And in fact, now there are many options with the big companies from industry, with many startups. They also offer like summer internships. So depending really on the background, but I think third year undergraduate is a good time to pursue an internship to get a bit of exposure to to industry. Pharmacy student, that's great. Enthusiastic about drug discovery. Yeah, so this is very now dear to me and very close to my heart because this is what I do in my daily job. I don't really cover this in this presentation, but if you want, we can connect and we can chat more about it. How much knowledge should I have for an internship? This is really, of course, up to the person that is offering the internship and, like the particular position. But ultimately, if it will be based on your level. So if you are a third year student, people will not expect that you are, let's say, at a postdoc level. So as long as you know the material that is corresponding to your situation, at the moment, then I think it should be fine. Yeah. So thanks everyone for coming. Very diverse backgrounds. Very cool to see it. And this brings me to the next question. And we have this also in the audience. We have many people that mention, I don't know much about quantum physics, but can I go into quantum computing? And in fact, the answer to this is a very definite yes from my experience. Again, when I started about 10 years ago, it wasn't the case because there was very little industry in quantum computing at the time. So everything that we had, even we didn't have quantum computers. They definitely weren't available on the cloud. And I think the current record at the time was a 2-qubit gate, a realization of a 2-qubit gate in a university. So the only way you could really work on quantum computing and quantum information science was if you were in a university and you were pursuing a PhD, postdoc, or a lecturer kind of a position. But now this has really, really changed. And the best way that you can actually get into quantum computing, even if you are not a physicist and you don't know quantum physics, my answer would be to become a specialist in one layer of the quantum computing stack. So quantum computing from that perspective is, I think, very unique because it's such a vast and varied field. We need, let's say, expertise in anything from really physics and electronics to abstract computer science and mathematics and group theory and very abstract concepts that are needed to develop algorithms. So I personally am coming from the lower end of the quantum computing stack. So I'm somewhere here, like around the quantum chip. Though I'm not an experimentalist, I haven't done experiments, but I have been working on solving problems in that area. But you can see that there are many abstract layers above that. And you can definitely work in quantum computing, even if you don't know quantum physics. Something that would really help you to enter the field would be if you know to program and if you are good with mathematical concepts. Which is something that you can definitely learn, not in a university per se. There are so many options now that you can learn these topics. But just to summarize, you can definitely go into quantum computing, even if you didn't study quantum physics or physics at all in the university. And in this case, you will most likely work on the programming aspect of quantum computing, on algorithms, and so on. So why are we talking at all about quantum computing and why now? So for me, this is a really, really exciting time to be in quantum computing. I definitely see this myself. In the past, when I mentioned that I'm in quantum computing, most people had not heard of it. It was really unheard of. Well, now most people have actually heard of it. Maybe they don't understand it. They don't know exactly about it, but they definitely have heard of it. So really, we are now at the beginning of this third technological revolution of quantum computing, and we will definitely see its disruptive power and influence in the next 5 to 10 years. So now is really, really the time to get involved in quantum computing and to learn about it and to try to also implement it in our industry organizations. The markets are going to grow. Yes?
Yeah, so Elica, a question popped into the chat. Vedansh asked for learning quantum computing. Is it a good idea to start with a machine learning course, or would it make more sense to jump directly into quantum machine learning and pick up machine learning concepts as he goes along? So start with general machine learning, or go the more specific route into quantum machine learning.
Yeah, I think it's very important to start with the machine learning course. Before you go into quantum machine learning, you have to know the foundations and fundamentals of classical machine learning. So definitely start there, and after that, I think quantum machine learning will be just an upgrade on the classical side. So yeah, definitely now is the time to be in quantum computing, and we see this. I'm sure all of you, if you are on the call, have seen that the investments in quantum computing are really going through the roof. Not only the private investments from VCs, but also the governmental investments. We have the quantum computing flagship, 1 billion euros investments from the European Commission. We have similar programs in China, in the States. Here in Israel, we also have $1/3 of $1 billion pledged for investing in quantum computing. So the industry is really growing, it's really exploding, and all these investments, also interest from people, are changing the landscape. And now is a very, very good time to be in quantum computing. And why is that? Of course, we know, just very briefly to cover, the potential of quantum computing. This will revolutionize almost all areas of business and industry. Of course, not all. Probably all of you know that not every algorithm will be sped up by quantum computers, and in order to have some advantage, you actually have to run particular algorithms, but still the applications of the algorithms that we know will bring quantum advantage are in many, many different areas of our life. So these are chemistry, pharmaceuticals, where I personally work, in optimization, machine learning, it was mentioned, material science, finance also I think is missing, but it's a very big application area. So really the potential of quantum computing is really, really vast.
Elica, we had a very technical question. So Dr. Kumar Gautam has asked if graphene is the best material for quantum computing. Is that something that you could speak to?
So it depends. The question has to be a little bit more specified in terms of the building blocks of quantum computers, like the hardware chips. Graphene is not really used. We use trapped ions, and superconducting qubits are the main candidates. Photonics. Also, we have cold atoms. So graphene is not really used for building quantum computing chips.
Oh, fantastic.
So I wanted to summarize what are the good things and what are the positive qualities that I feel we as quantum computing researchers or enthusiasts possess. So we definitely have critical thinking. We are very analytical. We have interest in exact sciences and STEM, and etc. We are curious, so we have inquisitive minds, and we like to learn, to ask questions and to learn new things. And we're also self-driven and motivated because all this knowledge is acquired during long hours, long nights, sitting most likely at home and working or studying. So I think this is all positive qualities that we possess that can actually help us to transition, and these are transferable skills that we could definitely take when we are looking for a job in industry. Something that might need a little bit of work and might not be really given, let's say, and how I view them are the extra qualities that can make a difference in our career and to really set us apart from everyone else. This would be the networking and advertising yourself, finding opportunities, pay attention to business culture, and working on our presentation skills. So this is really something that is not given if you are a good, let's say, quantum computing researcher. And this is, I definitely think, something that can help to set you apart from the rest and to open doors for you. Something from my personal experience that I can speak of is, for example, finding opportunities. I have been, even now that I'm engaging with you, and everything that I'm doing is really because I want to be proactive. I want to help to the people that are coming, behind my footsteps. I want to learn from the people that are more successful than me and more advanced in their career than me. So it always helps and pays if you try to get out of your comfort zone and you make the extra effort, even though this particular effort might not be clear how it will benefit you tomorrow, let's say, but it really always makes a very good impression to be open to opportunities and to just grab opportunities that pass by in front of you. The other thing is presentation skills. Even though now a lot of the PhD programs that I know of are very much like they pay a lot of attention to making presentations and so on. So everyone understands that this is very important for any career, whether it's pure academia or pure industry. But I definitely think that this is something that people should pay attention to and should try to improve in order to have a successful career in any field. And quantum computing is the same. And of course, networking. But I think everyone that is here now on the call is very aware of that. That's why they follow Women in Quantum. That's why they participate in the chat and react. So we are one big village, the whole world. And even now in this COVID situation, it is more clear than ever that it doesn't matter where you are based. You can always be connected to the whole world, and there are no borders. So it is very important to network and to advertise yourself and your skills. Okay, so these are the 6 steps that I would like to pose about building a successful career in quantum computing. The first one that I think is the most also important one would be to acquire good foundational knowledge in quantum computing. So this does not mean that you have to, again, know quantum physics or something like that, but it means that at least in one layer of the quantum computing stack, you have to be an expert. And you have to know it really well. And still, quantum computing is a very technical field. So even if you end up doing some job that is not so technical and it doesn't require you, let's say, writing code or designing gates or something like that, you have to have the technical knowledge to understand what is going on, to be able to participate in conversations, even if they are sales conversations. So I definitely think that the most important thing, if you want to have a career in quantum computing, is to acquire good foundational knowledge in quantum computing. The way you can do that is really endless. Now we have access to so much information online and courses, and you can really even attend the best courses in the world from the best universities, more or less for free. So information is there. We have access to quantum computers online. This, again, is absolutely crazy and just amazing. So definitely there are many, many ways that people can get involved and can get specialized in quantum computing. Okay, let's see now. Okay, so I will take this question. Can you give an example of a real life problem that was really helped with your theoretical background? So I work in the pharma industry for only a few months now, 3. 3 months. So for now, I haven't really, found a new algorithm or something like that. This is not enough time. But what I have actually worked before on is, as I mentioned, quantum control. So my work definitely helped with improving the fidelity of the gates for qubits. I was mostly working on trapped ion qubits, but the methods that I developed and that I implemented were to really minimize the errors in the gates for these qubits. So I don't know how much this answers the question, but overall, yeah, and this is really something practical. And even in one of the systems available online in for quantum chips, you have freedom to modify the control fields of the lasers, and I implemented my work on them. So this is definitely something practical, and by improving the fidelity of the gates of your circuit, you can run ultimately longer circuits. And currently, all of you know, but the bottleneck for quantum computing is the errors in the hardware. So it's a very big engineering challenge, to reduce the errors and to increase the fidelity of the gates. Okay, thank you. The second step to build a successful career is to go beyond your comfort zone. So this is something that I more or less touched about, really like challenging yourself and taking on experiences that are not something that you would do every day. It's probably not exactly in your work description or in your studies, but these experiences definitely make us more interesting, make us more rounded as individuals and even as specialists. So I think it's very important to go beyond your comfort zone when you are building a career in quantum computing. Let's say this can be even, if you are a student, you can try to be a TA, teaching assistant to the professor in quantum information, let's say, and just really try to have the extra mile, to go the extra mile that will help your CV to stand out. The other important step is to get feedback on your work. This is more targeted for people in academia, because in industry you get feedback all the time, and there the teamwork is way more like part of life, and you are really part of a team all the time. While in academia, we are used to being very autonomous. So for me, I'm still actually adjusting to this transition to industry, where, it is a common result and common work, and I'm part of a team. It is true, it is a small team, but we work on things together. While in academia, especially once you are in a university position as an assistant professor or lecturer, then you really decide what you work on, and maybe once a year you write a report for evaluation for your head of department. But definitely get feedback on your work. This is very important. And another advice is don't be expensive on your time and volunteer. I do that. I run, as I mentioned, Girls in Tech in Israel. So this has definitely helped with my network in Israel. I'm not from here, so I was, let's say, like an immigrant, an expat. So I didn't have much of a network except for the group that I was working at, and I was working with in Tel Aviv University. So heading Girls in Tech in Israel really helped with my network in Israel. So I definitely recommend volunteering as a way to increase your network. Okay, this I covered already. And then the sixth step would be to get a mentor. This is a mentorship session, and I definitely advise people for following and having a mentor. I personally never had one. But I don't think this was a good decision. It's just in my life, and again, when I started earlier in my career, this was a few years ago. So the landscape and just the whole environment was quite different, and there weren't so many mentors available. But I definitely think that having a mentor is very important for anyone's career, and they can really help you steer to the right path. And again, my presentation today is targeted to young people early in their career in quantum computing, or just enthusiasts. So that's why this is the topics I wanted to cover. Okay. So maybe I see more questions, but maybe we'll go over them at the end, because it is, yeah. Okay. So now I think this is an interesting slide about different positions and roles that I have seen in quantum computing industry. So except for the three big ones that we would expect, so one of them is really to do research, where you can work on quantum computing theory applications, on algorithms. You can be, a programmer, machine learning expert, quantum machine learning expert, or something like that. So you can work in industry and still work in research in quantum computing. And this is where I basically fit at the moment. The other one is you can be in hardware. This will involve being part of the biggest companies who also work on quantum computing hardware and on chips. So there you can work on quantum engineering, on microelectronics, and etc. You can see already very, very varied expertise are needed, and everything is encompassed in quantum computing. And the other one is software, where you can be doing scientific programming, compiler design, etc. So the different educational backgrounds that you can have that would get you a job doing any of those three things are physics. This is still the most common one, but we have also a lot of people with math, computer science, electrical engineering, computer engineering, mechanical engineering, etc. Also, it's possible that you don't have education in any of those things, but you are, let's say, a very gifted programmer, and you have a great page on GitHub and so on, and you did all this work by yourself at home, and you don't have formal education. This will still enable you to get a job, one of those three buckets. Now, another very big part is something that has shown up in the last, I would say, even 3 years, since we have so many startups that are starting in quantum computing. So you could even have a business role in quantum computing, and this can be business operations, for example, CEOs. We have many CEOs that are that used to be quantum computing scientists, VP product, CTOs, marketing manager. This is also a position that I have seen for which they require the PhD in quantum computing. Sales managers. The sales managers of the big companies are indeed with PhDs in quantum computing. And also you can have something that is called a community builder. So still people that are very familiar and that know quantum computing in depth, but are doing actually something different in that moment in life and in that particular company. So I personally find it really amazing that background in quantum computing and expertise in quantum computing can actually get you to all of these positions. I think this is pretty unique. Maybe it's not the only field that quantum computing that will give you that, but it is still pretty unique. And now, if you are wondering about moving to industry and what are the pros and cons between academia and industry, I would like to, like I have here two comics. So one of them is the academia one is that the pro is that you can work whenever you want and every day is a Saturday. But the con is that actually you work on Saturdays. And it is true. In fact, academia, it kind of doesn't stop. And even though you don't have really this 9 to 5 kind of a job, you also don't really have breaks or vacations or something like that. While indeed in industry, you can have times when there are no emails, and overall, let's say on the weekend, your email box is quiet because everyone is on the weekend. So people are not really responding to emails. They're not writing emails. While in academia, it's not like that. So this is a big difference. I think another big difference is the teamwork. As I mentioned, academia is way more solitary, really like way more solitary, while in industry you are part of a team and you work together in very, very close proximity to your colleagues. And this is really something I'm still adjusting to. And for example, we now make presentations together. I have not had a presentation with someone else ever, I would say. So the first time now when I had to share a presentation with a colleague, for me it was a bit strange. But of course, I'm adjusting to it. But this is something important. Actually, if you are more of the loner, that you like to work by yourself and according to your ideas of what has to be done, then actually academia might be better fitted for you than industry. And the other thing is that depending on what kind of problems you like to solve, academia is much better for long-term research. If you are really interested in going into the depth and understanding everything from the beginning and checking everything, if there are other explanations and so on, while in industry you have to produce results on a much faster pace. Another thing that I think for industry is positive for sure is that there you can have a big impact. Just because you are part of a team, usually the funding is better than in academia. So you, even though you are part of a machine, but the machine is much stronger and more powerful than you would be by yourself as a university professor, let's say. So you work for people, but also other people work for you. So the net effect, I think, is larger in industry. So I was hoping here that I would have a poll, but it is not going to work. But so I think the 3 questions that definitely helped me in deciding whether I wanted to move to industry from
Elica, yeah. Real quick, I figured out how to use the poll. So I think if you can tell me the questions, I can create a poll as we go. We'll do this live.
So basically these questions are targeted towards people that actually are wondering whether to stay in academia or to move to the industry. So the 3 things, and we don't have to have it as a poll, but it would be if you are interested in the applications of your research and of your work. I think this one is pretty clear. If you ask yourself, who is my research for, who will be impacted by it, and am I really into the applications, then industry is more for you than academia. The other one is, do you prefer variety or consistency? So the variety would be industry and consistency would be academia, because in industry you will inevitably end up working on more projects than you do in academia. So if you prefer variety in your work, then it's better to head that way. And the other thing is, do you think work-life balance is important? So that's actually a question with an interesting answer. And indeed, if you think that work-life balance is important, the correct choice is industry and not academia. Even though most people think it's probably the opposite, but indeed, I have seen studies that show that, in fact, industry has a better work-life balance, and people are more consistent, let's say, with taking their time off. And the moment you meet your, let's say, goals or deadlines, you can finish work. While ultimately in academia, we always have to think about the next step and so on. So in fact, there the work-life balance is worse. So in case you decide to transition, I think these are the things that have to be done. So you have to understand your organization. understand what kind of a company you are going to work for. This can be really different. You can be in a quantum computing startup, small, maybe even pre-funding. You can be in a larger, well-established and funded startup. You can be working in a big corporate like myself. So this is very important to understand where you are headed to. The other thing is to connect with others. If you are moving to industry, you should definitely know that you'll be working closely with people, much more closer than you have done before, and especially during your PhD, which is a very solitary kind of endeavor. Again, you have to be able to embrace team building and that this is the best way to work. I kind of touched on this topic before. Think about multitasking and project management skills. You end up doing some administrative things that you didn't do before that would involve some kind of working methods where you would report your work or time and so on. So this can feel a bit alienating, let's say, to a researcher or to a free spirit of an academic, but it's something that you can definitely get used to. And the other thing is to develop a business mindset. When you are considering going after a project, you should ask yourself, is it part of the value chain of my company? And I think overall these are not bad things, and I think these are also transferable skills that people can use in other parts of their life. And I'm coming towards the end of my talk, and I just wanted to finish with a very positive examples of many great people that have transitioned from academia to industry. So one of them is Linda Weinman, who is the CEO, I think, but co-founder of lynda.com. And she did sell it for over $1 billion, I think $1.5 billion. And previously, before that, she was a professor in a university, in a college in the States. And I was also surprised to find out that Jack Ma, before and in the beginning when he launched Alibaba, he was himself a teacher, a lecturer in English in a college in China. So clearly we do learn things from academia that are also transferable to industry. And you can be a very successful entrepreneur coming from academia. And the last example I wanted to give are some, definitely not exhaustive list, but many of the current emerging quantum computing startups, maybe even all of them, but almost all, are in fact established by people that come from academia, from the quantum computing field. So you definitely can have a successful career in academia and then transition very successfully to industry. So with that, I would like to finish. So thank you very much for your attention. And I would now move my attention to the chat and to questions there.
Yes, Elica, thank you so much for your presentation. It's been such a joy to listen to you talk, and you brought up so many good points. We did get the poll up and running, which is great. So it was really interesting to see answers come in, and thank you so much to everyone who shared your thoughts. So I know you were multitasking, you were talking as the poll was coming in, but we got a really interesting mix of answers. So it seems like our audience may be leaning a bit more toward working in industry, but we've got a really good blend of both people who seem like they're interested in both industry and academia. So we have a question from Arnaud. He is a postdoctoral fellow. He says, "Hi, Elica. I am from quantum chemistry and physics background with coding and machine learning skills. I would like to ask you, is it pertinent to learn quantum computing languages, even though they come from a theory background, or what skills should I particularly highlight or enhance while approaching companies?" So it sounds like Arnaud is interested in moving into industry, has a really strong background in academia, and would like some guidance on what kind of skills he should be picking up and what he should be highlighting to help land a role with a great company.
I think, Arnab, thank you for your question. I think you definitely have a very strong background, and you have both things. So the training with quantum chemistry and physics, and also the practical knowledge of programming and coding and machine learning. So let's say learning one of the quantum programming languages would be a plus, but I don't think it's something that, let's say, you have to do in order to get a job. So I think what you already have is more than enough. If you have time, definitely spend a bit of time, and it will be, I think, also very easy for you because they're really not difficult languages. Most of them are based on Python. So they are just libraries in Python. So I think that will not be at all a problem. As for the second part of the question, coming from a theory background, what skills should I particularly highlight while approaching companies? So this will be, let's say, for the quantum algorithm side, I think, because you're a theorist, so you clearly didn't work on hardware. So I think what is important is to show knowledge of algorithms, of the advantage that they would provide, and how they would relate to the use cases at the particular, let's say, company that you are interested to work for. If it's a finance company, you have to talk about particular types of algorithms. If it's another type of company, you have to focus on other ones. But I think this will be very, very important to really show knowledge of the algorithms and how they can be applied to the products and possible use cases at the company.
That's fantastic guidance, Elica. Thank you. It looks like Arnab is thanking you, so he agrees. That was really good guidance. And we had a couple more questions I'll speak to. So, Vidansh, I saw you asked for a list of quantum computing startups. One group that comes to mind that's great for quantum computing startups is One Quantum. They're all about creating an environment for startups to really thrive in. So I'll be happy to pull up the URL for that in a moment, and I can send that into the chat. And then Devika, I saw you asked if we could talk more about the Women in Quantum Computing event that's coming up, and that's a summit we're having on December 14th through December 16th, so we're only a week away from that. I'll share my screen real quick so you can see it. Oh, okay, I can't take an action until the poll is ended, so I'm going to close the poll. I'm also going to try restarting. Oh, my video is all goofed up. It looks like it got resized, and I'm having trouble sharing my screen. That's okay. Elica, I'm not sure what we can do about the video, so we'll there we go. Perfect. Yeah, it's never a real presentation unless you have at least one goof up with technology. It's mandatory. So very good. Thank you so much for sharing that invite, Denise. So for the Women in Quantum Summit, that's December 14th through the 16th. We're really excited about that. We're going to have a number of great speakers, just like Dr. Elica, who will be with us. We'll have keynote speakers. We'll have panels with different moderators coming in. So a lot of people with really interesting backgrounds. We're extremely fortunate. Our summit is being hosted by Honeywell and IonQ, so we're able to offer this for free. Denise sent the link into the chat. We would love it if you could RSVP and join us. And again, we'll have fantastic speakers like Elica who are being very generous and who are donating their time to this. So Elica, I am brimming with questions that I would love to ask you. And for all of our attendees who are still here with us, if you'd like to send your questions into the chat, we're keeping an eye on that. Elica, what drove you to give back and do all that volunteering? So I know you talked about the value of volunteering, and I completely agree. It's a fantastic way to build up your network and build out your skills, especially if you're moving. But it's something that not a whole lot of people do. So what drove you to do all the volunteer work that you're involved with?
For me, it's really, as I mentioned, I'm usually focused on promoting girls in tech. So unfortunately, in most of my career so far, I was always the only woman in the meeting or in the team. So I definitely want to see an improvement in that in the younger generations. And I know when I was at MIT, I definitely saw a difference because there they had the same situation. I think women were just less than 10% of the cohort, and then they made a conscious decision to allow and to promote more girls to go to MIT and to study engineering. And currently there the situation is very close to 50%. So about 50% of the undergraduates at MIT are girls. And also my university in Singapore Singapore University of Technology and Design was very active in promoting girls and having diversity in our classrooms and in our undergraduates. So I also want to see that for quantum computing technical jobs for women, and that will be more because even the first programmers were women, as we know from some movies and also before. And we definitely can contribute, and we should be able to do that freely without feeling always that we are a minority.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And so Joshua has sent a question in the chat. Joshua, we'll get to your question in just a moment. There's a question that was all the way at the beginning of the presentation. So I've been holding that in my mind. We'll come to that one now. So Elica, we got a question about job boards and how to find a job in quantum computing. Specifically, this gentleman was interested in something to do with quantum computing software. Do you have any recommendations about how people can find a job? Do you think that they should go out and do that networking? Are there dedicated job boards that you've been able to work with? What are your thoughts on that?
So if it is the question by Suraj, my advice would be really to try to get some experience in maybe getting an internship position for even a few months. And even if it is not very well paid, I think as long as you manage always the first step is the hardest. So becoming part of the pack is always the hardest point. So I would definitely recommend maybe trying to get an internship position with a startup. Maybe it's even a small startup and it's not even funded yet. But this would definitely help after that to transition and to get a real job in the field.
So then Joshua has a question. Are there any practical implementations of quantum computing algorithms that are creating business value right now?
Let's see. So, like in terms of really quantum computers to be able to outperform the current supercomputers like the Summit, we are not there yet. Because they're still not powerful enough to be able to outperform them and to be able to do something on them than we are able to do on the supercomputers that are available in the world. However, in the next few years, we definitely expect to see an improvement. And I can speak for the quantum chemistry and pharmaceutical area. There we are really seeing that the quantum computers are walking in the steps of classical computers from the 1970s. So we are simulating the same molecules exactly, like it's really amazing, but people are using the same molecules and we are going step by step. So currently in quantum computing at the moment, we are kind of on the level of what 1970s was for classical computing. And we cannot expect to bring some business value at the moment, but in the near future, when we have larger NISQ devices, and of course one day when we have error-corrected devices, which we hope will be in the next less than 10 years, maybe 7 to 10 years, then we will definitely see business value creation in many areas. And for example, pharmaceuticals and drug discovery is one of them, because to be able to simulate the molecules of the drugs, this becomes classically intractable very, very quickly. Like around, I think, about 60 electrons in a molecule, and you can never simulate this on a classical computer. While the drugs that we currently make have about 200, 300 electrons. Proteins are 1,700 or more electrons. So we will never be able to simulate this classically. And we will be able to do that with some pretty modest, in terms of size, error-corrected devices. So we definitely will see business advantage in the future.
Well, Elica, that's incredible. Just the scale that you and your team are looking at is huge. And you're absolutely right. Quantum computers will add so much value, and it's something that the whole world is racing for. So it's truly only a matter of time before we start getting there. Ezekiel, I saw you had a question asking if we're able to share the recording. Yes, we have been recording this. We'll be able to share it. Thank you so much for asking that question. Joshua said thank you for elaborating, so we really appreciated your feedback there. We have about 30 seconds left. If anybody else has one last burning question, feel free to send it in the chat. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. Oh, okay, so one more question for Angelos. How far in terms of years do you think, okay, so how many years away do you think we are from quantum
So we
computing?
are starting to apply it already. In terms of getting results and implementing them into the pipeline, it will take a few years, maybe 2 to 3, 5, something like that. But we are already applying quantum computing to some use cases.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again so much, everyone. We are at time. We have so appreciated having you with us today. It's been huge having such a great audience. And Elica, thank you for your time. We have really enjoyed having you here today, and it's been such a blessing to have you on. And we hope that all of you are able to join us next week for the Women in Quantum Summit. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening. It was a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful.
Thank you.